David had only 3,000 naira left in his account. Not 30,000, not 300,000, just 3,000. It was supposed to last him 2 days. But at exactly 11:43 p.m., a message from a complete stranger appeared on his phone. He almost deleted it without reading. One click and the story would have ended there. But seconds later, David would make a decision that would uncover a painful secret connected to his own past, a secret hidden for nearly 20 years. And by the time he realized who that stranger truly was, his life would never be the same again. Before we dive deeper, let us know in the comments where you're watching from. We'd love to hear from you. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you never miss any of our upcoming David was 29 years old and exhausted from pretending everything was okay. 3 months earlier, he had lost his job at a printing company in Lagos after management suddenly reduced staff. At first, he stayed hopeful. He updated his CV, called old contacts, and promised himself the situation was temporary. But weeks passed and nothing changed. Bills began piling up beside his television. His landlord stopped greeting him politely. Even simple things like buying bread became stressful calculations. Some nights, David stayed awake staring at the ceiling, wondering how quickly a life could collapse, without warning. That night, rain tapped softly against his apartment window while he scrolled through job listings on his cracked phone screen. Then the message came from an unknown number. "Please, I'm begging you. My daughter is very sick. I need transport money to get her to the hospital. I have tried everyone already." David frowned immediately. He had seen messages like this before. Online scams had become common, especially late at night. He was about to ignore it when another message appeared almost instantly. "I only need 2,500 naira. I swear I would not ask if it was not serious." David stared at the screen quietly. Something about the message felt different. There were spelling mistakes everywhere and no dramatic explanation, just desperation. He checked his account balance again. 3,172 naira. Sending the money meant he would barely survive until the weekend. He laughed bitterly at himself. A man who could not even fix his own life was considering helping someone else. But then he remembered his mother. Years earlier, when he was a child, a stranger once helped them with transport money after they were stranded late at night. His mother never forgot that moment. David sighed deeply and transferred the money. 2,500 naira. After sending it, he dropped the phone beside him and shook his head. Part of him already believed he'd been scammed, but another part of him felt strangely calm. The next morning, he woke up to several missed calls from the same number. He ignored them at first until a voice note arrived. The woman's voice was trembling badly. "Thank you so much. We got to the hospital on time. My daughter is stable now. I prayed someone would answer me, and you did. God bless you." David sat upright slowly as he listened. In the background, he could hear nurses speaking and the faint sound of hospital machines. This was real. For the first time in weeks, David smiled genuinely. The woman introduced herself as Miriam. She lived in Enugu with her 7-year-old daughter, Ella. Her husband had died 2 years earlier after a road accident, leaving her alone to raise their child. David normally avoided conversations with strangers online, but something about Miriam felt honest. Their conversation started casually. She asked how his day was going. He asked how Ella was feeling. Slowly, those conversations became part of his daily routine. Every night, David found himself waiting for Miriam's messages. She had a calm voice that somehow made his stressful apartment feel less lonely. He told her about losing his job and struggling financially. Miriam spoke about the difficulties of raising a child alone and how exhausting it felt carrying every responsibility by herself. There was comfort in their honesty. Neither of them tried pretending life was perfect. One evening during a phone call, Miriam suddenly laughed softly and said, "You know something strange? You're the only person who stayed." David became quiet immediately because deep down, he understood exactly what she meant. Most of David's friends disappeared after he lost his job. Calls became less frequent. Invitations stopped completely. Even his girlfriend ended their relationship, saying she needed stability in her life. Loneliness slowly became normal for him until Miriam entered his world unexpectedly. 3 weeks later, Miriam finally sent David a photo of herself and Ella standing in their living room. Ella was smiling brightly while holding a stuffed teddy bear. David smiled too until his eyes moved toward the wall behind them. A framed photograph hung near the staircase. The moment David looked closer, his heartbeat slowed. The man in the photograph looked exactly like his father. David immediately zoomed in on the picture. The resemblance was impossible to ignore. Same eyes, same smile, same face he had not seen since childhood. His father had abandoned their family when David was 8 years old and never returned. For years, David convinced himself the man simply forgot they existed. Yet now, somehow, his picture was hanging inside a stranger's house hundreds of kilometers away. David called Miriam immediately. The moment she answered, he asked quietly, "Who was the man in that photo?" There was silence for several seconds before she finally replied, "That's my uncle." David's chest tightened instantly. "What's his name?" he asked. Miriam hesitated before answering softly, "Michael Adeyemi." David nearly dropped the phone. That was his father's name. Neither of them spoke for several seconds afterward. Miriam sounded confused while David struggled to breathe properly. Finally, he whispered, "I think that man was my father." The silence that followed felt endless. Miriam eventually explained that Michael had lived in Enugu for many years before passing away from a heart attack 5 years earlier. According to her, he constantly talked about a son he lost contact with decades ago. David felt frozen listening to her words. All his life, he believed his father abandoned him without regret. But Miriam described someone completely different. A man filled with guilt. A man who spent years searching unsuccessfully for the son he lost. Then Miriam revealed something even more shocking. She said Michael kept an old box containing childhood photographs and letters connected to David. During a video call days later, she showed him the box. Inside were school pictures, birthday cards, and even a drawing David made when he was 7 years old. David stared silently at the screen while tears filled his eyes. For the first time in his life, David realized he had never truly been forgotten. A month later, David traveled to Enugu to meet Miriam and Ella in person. The entire journey felt unreal to him. He kept wondering whether fate had somehow arranged everything from the very beginning. The moment Ella opened the door and hugged him tightly, David felt something inside him change completely. For years, his apartment in Lagos had felt empty and cold. But standing there inside Miriam's home, surrounded by pieces of his father's forgotten life, David finally felt connected to something again. All because of one message from a stranger on a lonely night. Sometimes, the smallest act of kindness doesn't just save someone else. Sometimes, it saves you too. Never underestimate the power of a small act of kindness. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. And remember, kindness always finds its way back home.